Whatever the case is, right? There's all these stigmas, right? And you get judged for them. And it's not men who judge you, it's other women who judge you. As I had said, I was a very young mother, and I used to get judged a lot. I used to get judged a lot for being, a young mother. Oh, you were loose. Oh, it's like comments like, oh, you started early. Oh, you understand? Like comments like that. It's like, but you don't know how these children came to be.
Yeah.
So you cannot sit there in your pedestal and then judge me, without knowing my full story. So I think our major challenges come from judgment from people who don't know, and people who don't want to know, don't care to know. Even in the corporate space, you look a certain way, so then you it's assumed that you've probably slept your way there, or maybe you're going to flirt with the boss now and again for you to get. So it's all this assumptions and judgment. That creates our challenges as women, if you honestly look at it. Because I feel if we were in communities where somebody sees you, being challenged by something, they're not even going to ask questions, but they're just going to want to come and help you out of that situation without imposing their ideas. You should have, or you could have. The Bible says this, and they start bashing you, with all their cultural beliefs and their Bible beliefs and the religious beliefs and all of that, and they start bashing you instead of just trying to help you. So I feel most of our challenges come from judgment.
I can add on to what she's saying, is that we as a woman also who comes from divorce, the one thing that I took away from it was, I will never allow anybody to tell me how to live my life, because nobody knows what I've been through in my life to be where I am. And after I went through, obviously people will come with all their kinds of advice and why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Nobody really knows the decisions that went into me making the choices that I made from a very young age. And it's the one thing that, when I went through my divorce, was I cut away the part where other people's opinions mattered without them understanding where I am and what my thinking is. So all of my decisions after that was for me and for my kids. And whoever judged me, whoever looked at me in a certain way, I end up making that conscious decision to say that I will not listen to you. I will not take your fears, your opinions, and carry it on my shoulders.
I like how you say your fears. I like that.
Because at the end of the day, what we tend to do is, or what those people who are judgmental do, is they end up taking what they are fearing in life and they end up implying it on you. If you don't believe in who you are and the decisions that you make, you end up carrying those fears, and then you ask yourself at night, but why am I feeling this way? Just because you sit and you listen, because we all go through challenges in life individually. Something that is heavy for me might not be heavy for you. Something that is light for me might be very heavy for you. So the moment we, clear that path of other people's opinions, the judgments, the name calling, that's where we end up living as the woman that we should be. Because we actually creating a pathway for our children. And the moment you think that based on other people's opinions, judgments, that's the way for you to create the path for your children, it ends up, your kids end up making the same mistakes that you made. So the one thing that I told myself, that I told the ex-husband, I say the ex because it's not my ex-husband anymore.
You're not claiming that.
I'm not claiming it.
Doesn't belong to you.
Was because I came from I didn't grow up with a woman who showed me the way of life, showed me the way of, as a young girl, what kind of man I need to fall in love with. We grew up just observing and seeing. My mom was never around, so she couldn't, show me the way. And when I was married, because I came from a very distant family, I told the ex-husband that we need to come together as two individuals and create our own rules and life, how can I put it?
Create your own unit, your own culture,
our own culture.
Yes, your
because
own being.
As much as I look colored, but I grew up in a black family. I know the black culture. That's the culture that I know. And I used to be the in-laws then used to say that I'm colored. I don't know culture. I don't have a culture, because as coloreds, we don't have culture. We don't have traditions. And it really bothered me. That's why I said, let's come together and we create our own culture for the kids. Because if they're going to go with what other people's cultures were, they're going to end up making the same mistakes that we made. But let's create that. And that was very difficult, because I was married to a black man, a Tswana man. And I was I knew the culture because I grew up in a black family. I knew how to respect, your elders, because that's how I grew up. And it was so enforced on me to focus on a specific culture. And obviously I had questions, and I said, but why should I do certain things? Not that I don't believe in them, but I want you to clarify to me, so that if I'm going to follow your culture, then you can say, but this is how we do things, and you are walking that path, not bringing me in. You're walking a total different path from your culture, and you want me to obey strictly to those cultures.
Wow.
So it's the same that goes for people that churches, for example, they want you to believe that this is how the church operates, but when you see them outside of church, they're totally different people.
Very different. In fact, there's church is not to say we're talking about church here.
Yes.
However, church is part of where we come from, who we are.
Yes.
It's the one place where we are supposed to find our identity. And you said something very profound when you said judgment. There's so much judgment. And where there is judgment, there is no love.
Yes.
Judgment and love cannot operate
in the same space.
Yes.
So you come in as we speak on the challenges that we face as women.
Yes.
And she spoke on judgment, the fact that there's a lot of judgment that we go through as women, more so because of the experiences that we go through. I'm a divorcee. She's a mom who's never been married. How do you have kids without being married? She's also a divorcee, so we're still speaking on that.
Wow,
and
the divorce club here.
And so we wanted to put it out there that the experiences that we go through do not define us.
Yes, ma'am.
We read on the Word of God to say, how does the Bible define us? Who does God say we are as women? And I think there's no better person to speak on women than women, because we're speaking from lived experiences. So I was still saying on that note to say, when we speak of the challenges that we go through, the main reason for those challenges is due to the judgment that we go through from the church, from the society that we live in. This is why you don't find a lot of women actually, in leadership positions. Not that they're not there. I like the fact that there's a lot of change that is happening. Meaning women are coming out and they're refusing to be defined. And therefore they are coming out and taking their positions as ordained by God. And some of those positions are positions in leadership. So now we were saying there's no love in judgment. So in churches that we go, that we attend, that we are members of, if there's an element of judgment, then it means there's lack of love. So we're still on that. We may continue on that. If you've got anything to say on that as we continue.
Wow, sure. So I had the privilege of asking how far you guys went, so I have an idea of the conversation. It's unfortunate that I missed it, but I'm glad that the podcast is going to come out. The reason why I use the word now, the joke of the divorce club, is because, I mean, I was also a divorcee, so I completely understand. And I'm making it a joke because I just want us to lighten things up. I think judgment comes because we are so critical about so many things. Being a divorcee, being a single mom without a husband, we're making it difficult for ourselves to live a normal life of happiness because there's so much judgment, as you guys have alluded, earlier. And I think this thing goes generations and centuries ago. There is progress, as you say, Sisi, but I feel like it's not as rapid as it should be. I feel like there should be more progress. And the fact that we have podcasts like this and we can come like this as women, I think that we are contributing to the pool of knowledge when it comes to changing the narrative when it comes to women, leadership positions and otherwise, or what is expected by society for that matter. I think if I can just add to how you guys have defined womanhood or what I feel womanhood is, I think the most important thing before we can even begin to comment about our struggles as divorcees, as single parents and all those things, is just the ability to know who we are. I think you guys have addressed that. It's very important to know thyself. Know thyself, and I have this thing, I call it the ID code. So I say that as a person, especially as a woman, you have to have an ID. And an ID is, to me, it's an abbreviation. The I and the D are abbreviations, and the I stands for identity, and the D stands for destiny. So I believe that if you have a personal ID of who you are, you know what your identity is, and you subsequently know what your destiny is. When you have a clear thank you. When you have a clear definition of your ID, meaning your identity and your destiny, you will understand where to place yourself in society despite societal pressure.
Amen.
You will know. Because if you know your identity, it means you know the essence of who you are.
Yes.
And it's not defined by a divorce. What do they call these? What did we get again? A divorce
Decree.
Yes, thank you. So you're not defined by a divorce decree. You're not defined by the fact that you've got a second surname. Your surname has changed or whatever. If you know the essence of who you are, it will be easy for you to place yourself in society and know what your role is to contribute to society. If you know your destination, that being your destiny, which being your destination, you'll understand what you're working towards. And despite of the challenges that may come, there is a destination at hand, and you have to get there. And so I think the reason why as women we suffer under all the societal pressure, conditioning, condemnation, stereotype is because we have not found out who we are. We fail the ID. And so once we fail the ID, we fail under pressure of society.
Because I think the reason why we fall under the pressure of society as human beings, you grow up under that society and it becomes your identity.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you fail to see that you are not society. You need to start as you. Whereas, when we were talking earlier before we started shooting, about us giving so much of ourselves and losing our identities. I had even mentioned that at some point I was so focused on raising my kids that at some point I was like, Konja, what's my favorite color? What do I like
where
eating?
you completely forget about
where you
yourself.
Completely forget about yourself. And that ID, Mrs. Maz, that you talk about is very, very important because it gives you almost like not even a blueprint, but it gives you that strength, right, to pull out of that cloud of shame, that covers you as and it's not. It doesn't come overnight. Boom. It's constant small mistakes that we do as human beings. These mistakes that come along and this cloud gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you have your ID, I love that. If you have your ID, then you know ukuthi this cloud is not the end all and be all of my life.
Yes,
It is just the season of where I am.
Yes.
And I will push through it. And those who still want to define me by this cloud of mistakes
And experiences.
then it's fine.
Yes.
I will leave you behind. Mina, I'm focusing on my destination.
Yes.
Right.
Because I don't think God makes each and every one of us just you know, as a blade of grass that is not not that it's not significant, but it's not identifiable as an individual.
That's true.
We look different. I might look like my mother. You might look like your father. But at the end of the day, you are still
an individual.
You are still a whole you that still needs to go out into the world and touch people's lives.
True. Wow.
You know, in many shapes and forms. And if you lose yourself within that cloud, you are depriving other people of the greatness that your life is.
Also, you know what I like also about that, your ID, is the fact that the moment you understand your identity, you can easily walk away from situations where you feel very uncomfortable.
Yes.
You can easily say no.
Yes.
Because what we tend to do in order to make society so comfortable in our spaces is because we are afraid to choose ourselves because what? We're going to be judged. We're going to be called, you see yourself too much. You think you're better than everybody else. And at the end of the day, if you don't choose yourself, somebody is going to choose your way for you, and you're going to miss your destiny. Because you don't know who you are in society. You don't know who you are with yourself. How are you going to identify who you are to your children or to spaces that you walk in if you don't know who you are?
And you know, this thing of identity is so profound, it is so deep that it even affects all areas of our lives.
Yes. Of course.
You know, after my divorce, dating was different. I think for the very first 2 years after, when I started going back into the dating scene, I wanted to speak on relationships. I was so much not aware of who I was that I had to tone down what I would like in a man. Because I thought to myself, here I am, I'm a divorcee. Here I am, I've got 2 kids. Who is gonna
want you?
Yes. And this went on. I even thought to myself, oh well, if I could just get myself a divorcee,
then he'll understand.
Then he'll understand.
Yes.
And then I would think to myself, oh, then I meet someone, and then his family is gonna judge me.
Yes.
You know, and therefore, I remember trying to date during that time. The very first thing I would say when I meet someone for a date, the first thing I would mention, so that we are was I'm a divorcee with 2 kids. It's the first thing you must know.
Yes, and they must run.
Do you understand? Meaning, even us as women, we do have internalized judgment
on ourselves.
And when we take away that, we thrive. Let's go to relationships. But relationships. What are the challenges that we face? Mrs. Mazindo, you're no longer talking challenges when you're now talking.
You'd be shocked.
There were challenges we all faced after our divorces. We 3 of us have been divorced here.
Yes.
Wow.
I rebuke that space in my life, guys. I do not ever want to know what being divorced is like.
Can I just touch on something that Sis Dudu said before we continue?
Yeah.
She said a very vital point and said, it's difficult because we are part of that society.
Yes.
There's nothing as difficult as feeling like you're not loyal to society, to pain. We are sometimes even loyal to our pain. We are loyal to suffering. We are loyal to abuse. And once we want to step out of that framework, we feel like we are being disloyal. It's not easy to leave the township and want to go venture into the suburb. It's not easy to leave a man that is faithfully paying your rent, yet abuses you, because that's all your framework knows, that's all your mind knows, that's all your subconscious knows. It's used to abuse. So anything outside of the framework of abuse, the mind cannot accept that. And that's why we
advise them. That's
why is it so?
While you're on it, but how do you advise? I also have an experience of a very emotionally abusive marriage that I was in.
Right.
Let's just give a word of advice to people who are listening to this podcast and who are saying, sometimes people watch and say it's so easy for them to speak because they're on the other side now.
Yes.
But it's also good to speak when you're speaking from experience, because
Yes,
people
ma'am.
who are in that, they listen to you better because they know that you know the road they are currently on.
We are a product of our childhood.
Yeah.
We are a product of our upbringing. We are a product of the neighborhood we lived in.
Yeah.
Yes,
We are a
ma'am.
product of our parents' love and even the lack thereof.
Yes.
So psychology says that the child develops basically your personality within the first 6 years of your life. So most of the things that we are acting up now as an adult, our subconscious actually collected it when we were young.
Yes.
When our parents didn't think that we understood what was happening, even though we didn't as a child. But the subconscious is like a memory bank. It's a bank, or it's like a hard drive. So it stores up every information from the time you're born, the time you first heard, a noise or crying, or the first word that the doctor said. Though you couldn't bring it to awareness level when you were 2 seconds old on the earth, your subconscious was able to collect that. The subconscious was able to collect the first time your mother shouted at you, the first time your father touched you inappropriately and you couldn't understand what was happening, the first time you were raped at 3 years old but you didn't know what was happening. The subconscious was storing that up. I grew up in a rural area. Before we lived in a back house of my mom's bosses because she was a domestic worker. I lived in the rural area, and then when my mom lost her job, I was around 15 years old. She didn't lose it actually. Her bosses emigrated to Canada, and then we had to go back to the rural area. Like when I mean rural, I'm not talking about, I mean rural. There was, Makai. There was no electricity. We were still using a pit toilet. I'm talking just now, 2008, 2010, and we moved back to that area, and that environment, all those things, your subconscious is storing it up. It's storing it up. We wonder why we act the way that we act when we are adults. We wonder why certain aspects of ourselves come out when we're in relationship. It's because of the things the subconscious was able to store up. Yeah, it's expressing at that time, but it's stored up when we were a kid and we don't understand. Have you ever had an experience where you said something to your partner, you say something to your child, and you just don't know where that comes from? You don't know why you did that. Sometimes we go, I don't know what was wrong. I don't know what led me. Have you heard even your partner say that? I don't know why I hit you. I just
Or you
something-
listen to your partner saying something and you're thinking,
This has nothing to do with me. Yeah, this is nothing. You are talking to someone. Yeah, you're answering something, but it's not me. It's because when we were young, there's different development. This word, develop. Okay. This is a very hard word in South Africa. We need somebody. Development. We need a podcast on that. Basically, but so we go through different developmental stages as kids, and how our parents treat us or our immediate caregivers in those years, in those very crucial developing stages, affects us, right?
Yes.
So psychology also says that 80% of our behavior comes from our subconscious.
Yes.
Remember, when we talk about the subconscious mind, we're talking about not only is it a memory bank or it stores up information, but it's not in your awareness level.
Yes.
So how do we do this? Let's take a picture of, for example, an iceberg. You know, an iceberg, that ice that sits on top of the water.
Yes.
The iceberg has an anchor at the bottom.
Yes.
So we only see that part at the top, which is
Yes.
ice, but at the bottom there's a part that anchors that iceberg. It's like the subconscious mind. So where you see the iceberg on the sea or on the water, that's the awareness level. Like right now we are interacting on our awareness level, our conscious level. We are talking, you can see me. You guys look beautiful in red lipsticks. I don't have. I have a pink one because I think I look terrible in red lipstick. But you guys look gorgeous. We are on a conscious or an awareness level. Now the subconscious is underneath the iceberg, underneath the water where it's not seen. So basically what psychology has studied or has brought up into understanding is that part where we do not see controls 80% of our behavior.
Yes.
That's a scary thing because it's not on your awareness level.
Yes.
You don't even know why each time when you see somebody with red lipstick, you get irritated.
Yeah.
Because it could be that your subconscious at 6 years old picked up a teacher who used to wear red lipstick and always swore at you. And already your mind picked up that I have a disassociation to people with red lipstick. But you don't understand that once you get into the workplace and then your boss or your manager wears red lipstick and starts attacking you, your mind quickly connects your boss who's a woman who's wearing red lipstick to your preschool teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who said something to you?
Sorry, Mdase. Could we say the same even in relationships?
100%.
Because
100%.
someone once said, you attract who you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Does that mean if I am not healed from the childhood trauma that you're referring to, that I've been gathering subconsciously as
Yes.
a child, and now I'm finding myself in marriage,
Yes.
and I'm finding myself experiencing abuse, physical, emotional, all kinds of abuse, and I'm accepting it? Is it a question of I have not moved away from that?
Yes.
It's still there, and
Which
therefore
is- yes,
it's who
which
I'm
is the-
attracting.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's also what I'm accepting.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
It's true
Yes.
because
Subconsciously.
because it's
Yes.
subconsciously
Yes.
and
Yes.
and remember it's in the it's not in the your awareness level. It's subconscious. It's in
Yes.
the unconscious. So it's underneath. It has not been brought to the surface. You don't even know that you have that problem.
Yes.
So what the brain does is that the brain likes working in patterns.
Yeah.
It likes it likes associating itself with things that it knows.
can relate to
Yeah.
No, this is I'm relating to this because right. So the childhood's not always the greatest and
Yes.
whatever. So eventually, in my adulthood, I meet this guy.
She's been looking forward to telling us.
No, not this
not
one.
this one.
No, of course,
You're still
of
going to tell
course.
us about this.
But
one.
Anyway, I meet this guy in my adulthood. We start dating, and we start off our thing as a situationship. It's nothing serious.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
bona phambili,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know what I'm in my 20s, moving on with the flow, and yes, Makpela 3 weeks. See happy. I'm like, "Ay man,
This is
I-
not.
this is not
Something
it.
is wrong.
Something is not right.
Bottomless
Let me
happiness.
start something.
Oh,
Yeah, no, because man, I'm going to be a victim.
Yeah. It's too perfect. That's too right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ngifuna ukufanele abangani bami ngithi no ungishayile no
Yes.
not ukuthi ungishayile but
Silwile, yes.
sinedrama kune
Yes.
abuse
Yes.
like you get so addicted
Yeah.
to
Yes.
drama and
Yeah.
abuse and emotional abuse ukuthi ngifuna ukumtshela something and
Yes.
le nto ngizomtshela yona izonginikeza that response where he's going to say something mean back to me.
Sure.
And it is you get addicted to it. And at some point you get defined by
By
it.
it,
Yeah.
yes.
And you don't until you yourself bring it to the fore.
Yes.
Ukuthi I know man.
Something.
And yes, what's it when I broke up with this particular individual, Sasi happy. Sassy happy guys.
Sure.
We were very, very happy. We had come back from a wonderful holiday. There was absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. And I was just like, I love you, but I love myself more than I love
Yes,
you.
yes. Wow.
And until you bring that thing to the fore,
Yes.
or until you acknowledge it yourself, ukuthi, this is not what is meant
Until
for
you
me.
deal with
Yes.
it, until
Yes.
you heal from
You
it.
heal from it. And the unfortunate thing, ukuthi thina abantu besifazane, we heal while we are still in that relationship.
Yes.
And then when we leave,
Yeah.
we are gone.
Yes. And you know what? The moment that person recognize you have that, you want to be the victim, that's where they take advantage.
Of course, the power. That's where you give them the power.
Because now they can pinpoint and say, this is the person that, because also that stems from
Yes.
their subconscious
Yes.
childhood trauma.
They're also a victim.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the moment they feel that power of, you know what, I can actually influence this and feel happy because that's how that's when they think that they actually dealing with everything they've been through in their life.
Yes.
Now they're taking it out on you.
Yes.
And the moment, when a person says, you are not the person that I met, it means you have snapped out of their carrot they've been holding.
that they've been dangling, yeah.
So now you recognize who you are.
Exactly.
And you brought your traumas to the front. And you can now identify and say,
This is
I am not this person that this person is identifying me to be. I am totally different because we all try to get out of their childhood trauma.
True.
Because like the saying that says, you are not your past.
Yes, yes.
You are not the situation that you grew up in. You are not the young girl that couldn't make decisions for yourself. And that person, the moment they recognize that, they take all your power away and you start identifying yourself. you start blaming yourself. You start looking at yourself through their mirror and not your own. But the moment you start choosing yourself,
And
I
taking
remember
your power back.
when I went through my my divorce, it was so funny because the moment I decided to walk away, he wanted to use the children to get me back.
Sure.
And after several attempts for me to leave, I had to take my kids and say, because he started using the Bible.
No,
He started using.
That is something we need to talk about.
He started using. He started, and you know how abusers are when they start quoting what fits them and not the situation.
Yes.
And I had to make a conscience because I had to leave my kids.
Wow.
And I said to him, the Bible says, the eye that is causing you to sin,
Right.
remove it. So if it means that I have to cut my arm to leave this place,
Wow.
So
I will
be it.
leave you with my kids.
Yeah.
I will, by God's grace and mercy, if they grow up and they hate me, I will still try and explain to them what was the reason for me to make that decision. It's not that I don't love them. They are my everything. They are the reason why I breathe. So if they grow up hating me for what you've told them about me, I will accept it. But I will not continue living in a space where I'm losing myself. And we sat for like 12 hours trying to talk it through, and I was completely...
Your mind was...
I was...
Your mind
I was... Listen, this is it. I don't want... If I could move to the furthest country just so that I don't see you, I would do that. That guy ended up hating every step I take. But I made that decision.
Yeah. Ladies, how has these experiences shaped you as mothers now? Because we are sitting here.
Wow.
You know, I once attended a conference, and in that conference, the speaker said, I thought it was very profound till a couple of years ago when I changed, and I was like, nah, man, this is not true. And the speaker was defining womanhood, and she said, you're a man with a womb, which is true, but everything about that topic, or rather that preaching, was around the actual womb. And I thought to myself, but being a woman is, you're not only defined by your womb. Sometimes we have wombs, but we don't give birth to kids, but it does not take away the fact that we are mothers. It's in our nature to be mothers, having given birth to a child or not. How has... listening to everyone speaking here, all of you ladies are here, ladies that have, I would say, healed from those past traumas that you're talking about. How has that healing affected or shaped you now as a mother, as a sister, as a wife, as someone who's fresh in a... Is it fresh in your relationship?
Yes, fresh. It's very fresh. Fresh out the oven.
You can see how to blush.
How has it... Let me...
Motherhood. Okay. How my experiences have affected me in motherhood. So for me, it was a matter of I will never allow my daughters to know what an abusive man is, or grow under a roof where there is an emotionally abusive man, a physically abusive man.
Yes.
They will never know. That they can experience on their own when it's their decision-making time. But me, as a mother,
Very protective.
they will never know. So my son started acting out. Teenager, going through his phases, started acting out. And I told him, I was like, I am not going to let you live under the roof, same roof as my daughter. And you treat me like this. And just because I love you, allow this behavior. I will not give that as an example to my daughter. I refuse. You are my son. I love you. But right now, I do not like you.
Whoa.
Sure.
So Very strong boundaries.
Yes, I loved him to the earth and back, but I did not like him at that
You didn't
point.
accept
I didn't accept the energy, the behavior that he was bringing. And I was like, just because now I love you, your sister must now grow up thinking, but just because umuntu wesilisa uyamthanda,
Yes.
he can then treat you as a doormat, azenzele, phekwe ekhanda lakho as he chooses. I refuse. So with this stance, uyaphuma la kwami. Uyahamba uyakinike manje yes uyakubaba wakho ke manje la uzoba indoda nenye indoda khona because clearly lo budoda bakho othi ubuletha la ekhaya is not the one. And people did not believe it ukuthi wena lo uyamhambisa kubo kanjani, like nobody believed it. Nobody believed it. And wahamba and esehambile, then he realized Uguti, life isn't what mommy and granny have created for you. It's not that soft landing space. Life is hard. And for you to have the life that you have, these women work hard. So, gwamvula mehlo, and it also then created that boundary. And I think it also, in my mothering as well, because I would always tell my son, I can never teach you how to be a man, but I can always teach you how to be a decent human being. And he came back as a decent human being. He came back considerate. He came and he asked to come home. He asked to come home, you know, because he saw Uguti Gunjan Lapayana. And for me, all my experiences have taught me Uguti, tough love is okay. Tough love is okay. These kids need to learn what tough love is, because cajoling umuntu umfake khwapheni and it's not going to help anyone, because with all that fluff that you give these kids, they turn around and when am I, you didn't do this, when am I uhlulekile. But if there are boundaries, clear boundaries, and you know, tough love, then they can go out into the world and they are going to run and hit their heads against the wall, but they will stand up. You know, they will stand up on their own, with or without you. That they will stand up. So for me, all of this, that's how I feel it has affected my mothering as a mother. It's tough out there.
It is.
Mommy is not always going to be there. So
It
when
is.
you yourself need to figure out ukuthi wenze njani manje.
I love this.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah, no, boundaries and tough
It's
love.
important.
No, they've never killed anyone.
I also okay, so I'm just gonna go back to my childhood where I didn't have, yes, there were caregivers. In actual fact, the other day I was just like talking to a colleague, and we were talking, and I was like, you know what, I grew up where I've never seen because I grew up with my grandmother, and I've never seen my grandfather hit my grandmother. But there were other kinds of abuse that, you know, was there. And I had to figure out life all by myself. Obviously with the direction of the caregivers that were there, and also because of, in our years, the neighbors and everybody around would always be like taking care of you. And when I started having my first child, I was 21, and I had to do it all by myself. I just found a job, and I had to find somebody to take care. I come all the way from the Northern Cape, and I'm staying in a back room in Mamelodi, and I had to find a trustworthy neighbor to take care of my child whilst I go and work. I was a security officer at the time. And I had to figure out life of how to raise a girl child all by myself. And obviously with the help of, you know, other women that we live with. But at the end of the day, I had to do that and figure out how can I make sure that my child is protected and not grow up the way I grew up. And obviously years later, I got married and I had another child. And all those challenges that I've been through after the divorce, it was, I wanted to blame myself so much for my child not having you know, the protection that I thought I was going to give her. I'm speaking about the eldest because the youngest ended up staying with the father because he got custody over her.
Sure.
And she turned out to be so, not rebellious, but she kind of had all this anger within her that I thought that
You protected her
I'm to
from it.
blame because why did I leave a comfort home to be struggling right now? So she tended to show me like sides of her that I was like, I was always there. Whose child are you? Because you're definitely not my child. And there was a point where where she said something to me and I said, I will hit you. And she wanted to fight me back.
Sure.
You see, like you said
Raising
now,
teenagers.
she was 17 and I said, I'm going to pack your bags
Sure.
and you're going to leave. The youngest was there. And the youngest couldn't understand because we stay together all the time. And she comes to visit from time to time. And I said, I'm going to pack your bags. I'm going to leave you there
Yeah.
in the street and you will figure out where to go since you are under my roof.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm putting up with
Right.
in order to make sure that you are okay. Remember, I'm stressing about a girl child that is being raised by a man. I am here, her mother, who doesn't know what she's going through. I'm trying to give you all that I can, going through all these challenges.
Sure.
And still making sure that you are okay.
Sure.
If you feel that I am not a mother enough for you to respect me, then you rather go.
Sure.
We would go weeks without speaking. We were living in a
in the
one-bedroom.
same house and you're not talking.
We were
you
living.
are buying food.
Yes.
You are feeding this person. No, the thing is,
Sure.
you are feeding this person who is choosing
Yes.
to disrespect you. Yes.
And this was 2017. We were living in one bedroom. And 2018, she still gave me that, that anger towards me. And I used to cry myself
Sure.
so to sleep because I was like, nobody has shown me how to raise
Right.
a teenager.
Right.
I don't know. I cannot go with how other people raise their kids because I believe in I am me and somebody else is somebody else.
Yeah.
And she's turning 22 this year. And just a few weeks ago, she told me that because our relationship has matured in such a way where now we can speak about everything. And she told me that we've been through a lot. Thank you for being my mother.
Oh, that is
And
beautiful.
I am proud of you because you could have easily given up.
Sure.
And those words was like, wow, I can't even believe how I went through that stage with you. And turn out you actually recognize that now, that you've seen the journey that we've been through, the two of us. And that's the challenges that, it's just creating that path for yourself. And because I believe I cannot take my way of growing up as a young woman and try and putting it on her. I try to sometimes see life from her perspective. And my daughter has turned out because she could have, most of the time I would leave her alone and go and do my side hustles. I will knock off at work late because work was my solace to deal with what I'm going through.
Right.
And she could have been with somebody right now. She could have been in situations where I would sleep at night and not knowing where she is. But she decided to stay at home. She's always at home, so I always know where she is, because I told her that honesty for me is the best policy. Whether you're dating or not, whatever you do in life, we just have each other. You don't have anybody else but me, and I don't have anybody else but you. So you need to make sure that you communicate honestly with me. If something is bothering you, tell me. If I do something that you don't like, tell me. Be honest with me, because all of the things that I'm trying to create now is things that I used to be very quiet about when I was young. I never used to say how I feel because of society and being judged. I never used to, say no to situations or things that I felt uncomfortable in because of how I grew up. And ever since I found my voice, I am not afraid. I love communication. Rather over-communicate than making me wonder, because I will not wonder.
I love this. I love
I
this.
will definitely not wonder.
Yeah.
If you don't communicate to me, the problem is not with me, the problem is with you.
Yes.
If you have an issue with me and you don't speak to me about it, it means the issue is with you. You cannot blame me.
There's something about women who find themselves. There's boundaries that we build when we find
Yes. Yeah, no.
who we are.
Yes.
Mdaze,
Yes, ma'am.
how did it shape you as a mother? Your experiences, your traumas, konke nje.
I actually feel invalidated to even speak because I'm 10 years older than a daughter, so I'm like, do I even have... Am I the youngest here? Should I even be?
You are,
because mine are
actually.
just like... before I can proceed with that, I wanted to close off the point that we touched on, and I hope we're going to go back to it, because I think as women, even though we are struggling with whether it's teenage kids or toddlers, right? We have a sense of control over that to some degree and extent. But I think one of the things that really hurt us as women, it's the relationships. There's a struggle there. So that's why I would like us to go back before I continue the parenting. You asked earlier, and I was trying to just elaborate, and I was saying that the brain forms patterns. It only associates with what it knows. The second it is exposed to something that it knows, the brain tends to resist. That's why change is so difficult. That's why it's so difficult to form new habits, because your brain is used to that bad habit that you're doing. The second you want to start waking up and going to gym, the brain resists, because it's a pattern that is abnormal to its normal functioning, or to its usual known functioning. And because the brain works with patterns, and it wants to associate with what it knows. If you were born in a abusive family, or you had an abusive relationship before, your question was, why do we attract who we are or whatever? We attract what our subconscious knows. We attract the patterns that our subconscious knows. Like yourself, if the subconscious knows abuse, it will always gravitate towards abusive men. It's amazing, you know. And the second that we find a good man in our life, we tend to push that man back, because the mind is saying, this is abnormal, this is wrong. He's not swearing at you, he's not shouting, he's not abusing you. Yeah, we sabotage it. And it's because the brain is like, I don't know this is malfunction, you know. And it's very difficult to hack and convince the brain otherwise. It's a process. Sometimes it needs therapy. Sometimes it needs coaching or counseling. And, you know, when I deal a lot with my clients, the most important thing is always going back to the drawing board, restructuring things, letting the brain know that there's new management now, there's new ways, and it's not easy to persuade the brain. It's not easy to persuade the brain otherwise. And so we find ourselves falling again in the same cycle of men, because our brain says, no, this is okay, he's good. The second he seems a bit dodgy, the brain is like, comfortable, this is what I know, you know. And that's why we keep finding ourselves in those kind of situations. And it takes a healing process, it takes therapy, it takes a lot of hard work for you to reprogram your mind to knowing a man as a different species from what you're used to. And it's not often an easy process at all. Some people never get to that. And that's why people sometimes don't succeed in relationships. It's not always the case, but sometimes they don't succeed in relationships because there's a lot of patterns that have to be reprogrammed in the mind when it comes to relationship on its own. Now, as a young mom of just like, my oldest is just 3-year-old, I think my childhood and my previous marriage has taught me that damage happens as you go along.
Yes.
I feel like we are born a clean canvas, pure in our perfection, but we are just bombarded with so much as we go along.
Yes.
Our missing fathers, growing up with just a grandmother, that's not a normal family setup.
Yes.
We don't get a balance from the male and the female perspective.
Yes.
That's why later on in life we also struggle with genders, because you didn't have a fair share balanced of genders. You tend to hate men because there was never a man around.
Yes.
Or vice versa, where you gravitate more towards men because there was never a father present.
Yes.
And because your father was absent, you have this vulnerability when it comes to men. And oftentimes you fall into the hands of the wrong men because of your vulnerability.
Yes.
When after I divorced, I was a vulnerable wreck. I was so vulnerable, I was so desperate. And the men that I came across, it's as if they could smell my vulnerability and they preyed on it.
Yes.
They preyed on it, And as women, there's a lot of advices that I can give. There's a lot of experiences that I can share. But one of the things that I'll definitely emphasize is that we need to stop being vulnerable. We need to stop being vulnerable and we need to stop being desperate.
Yes.
Yes.
Somebody's surname cannot be your identity.
Yes.
You can't be working so hard just to change your surname to being
Yes.
Mrs. Mang Mang.
Yes.
And if we can stop that, I mean, I know we have to touch on gender-based violence.
Yes.
GBV, the lack of self-worth that women have contributes to GBV.
Amen.
And I'm not making an excuse for men.
No,
I'm
you're not.
That's
You
very
you and I are on the same.
They're going to be abusive.
You're on the same.
They're going to be abusive, and they are abusive.
You are not. It's important for us as women to account how
Yes.
have we contributed
Yes.
to what is happening
Yes.
now.
That's how I define the reason why I ended up divorcing.
Right.
It's because
You took ownership.
I always tell people, as much as I want to blame him, but I don't blame him because I allowed it.
Yes.
That's the
100%.
first healing.
I have to ask myself, when he was doing all of these things that I've noticed, all of these red flags, what was I thinking will change? What was I thinking will happen? What did I do to make sure that I don't find myself in that space? And you know what? A lot of women will probably say, it's easier said than done. You are now where you are because you think that you are better than what my situation is.
Right.
But also, what comes with that is like you say, the rewiring of the brain.
Yes.
The moment you allow one mistake, it keeps on.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle where the predator end up making sure that slowly but surely
They program you.
they program you
Pushing
for
those
you to
boundaries.
believe. Even if you ask yourself, why am I putting up with this?
Right.
But you end up blaming yourself and say, if I walk away from this, what's going to happen to my kids?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to all this time that I've spent to build this? What's going to happen? But I said I love him.
What are people going to think about me?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is my church going to
Losing
think?
the money. You're gonna lose the nice life.
So I am also on, because my decision making also was based on,
Yes.
I grew up with a family that didn't really care for me.
Right.
So I wanted a family for my children so that if I pass, I know that both my kids are in a family because I grew up with a very awkward family. So I always say that I didn't have family, but I don't want my kids to grow up in a situation where they didn't have a family.
Right.
So I had to snap out of that.
Snap out of that.
It's that
victim mentality.
Yes,
because being a victim is addictive.
Yes.
It is addictive.
So the rewiring of the brain, the childhood traumas,
It's
the
crucial.
subconscious, it's what we prey on.
Yeah.
So that is it's so
Oh, yes.
important.
And it's an issue in society because So now they've detected your vulnerability.
Yes.
They've detected how desperate you are. They prey on you. Like you say, they condition you. It's a conditioning. So they can, because they've detected your vulnerability, now they start doing things that will push in your corner where you say, I actually can't live without this man. Or in actual fact, I think I'm the problem. Let me fix me up. That's what a typical abuser will do, right? And once he has you in that position, he's cornered you. And it's not easy. And you use the word snap out of it. It's not always easy for everybody. There's nothing as difficult as getting out of abuse. And I can understand, I can relate the snap. I said to my husband the other time, and I said, I don't think I'm a good counselor. I don't think I'll do it, And now because I've done, life coaching as a course, neuro-linguistic practitioning. I study a lot with psychology and stuff like that, but I don't have a qualification in it, even though people think I do because of, my knowledge, my in-depth knowledge into the field. And I said, I don't know if I should study psychology altogether just to qualify myself, and because I don't think I'll be good in the counseling room. I don't think I am right now. My husband goes, but you're doing okay. And I said to him, I'm different because I am a snap out of it kind of a person, and that's not really how it is.
Yes,
you don't just get out of abuse. It's a process because your mind. The second your mind finds itself in a ditch, it's not easy to take a person out. It's not easy to take a person out of depression. And now we've come to a point at church where we now call depression a demon. They're demons. But then there's the mind, there's the neuro, there's the transmitters in the mind, there's the chemical imbalances. That has nothing to do with demons. Satan is not that powerful. He's not that powerful.
We give him way too much.
Way too much power. No, it's the brain. God created.
Satan look at it, is like,
guys, this is too much. Like he's going to sue us. If Satan could sue us, he could sue us. Because this is what do they call it? What do they call it in law? It's defamation of character. That's really like he would finish us. The devil would finish us. Because God created the transmitters in our brains. He created the nervous system. He created hormones, the lack of hormones. He created all these things. Cells, they keep growing, they break, they divide. It's all God's work. And basically, if right now you don't eat, you're going to go hungry. It's a principle, right? If your brain is overloaded with trauma and pain, you're going to deteriorate. It's not a demon. It's your mind saying, I'm tired, I've had too much. Too much abuse, too much swearing, too much shouting. You're going to be depressed. It has nothing to do with the demon. And we need to, and there are those that are demons. We have to agree. There are spirits. There are times when we need to pray and cast, but there are times when you actually need to sit down and talk about this thing. You need to sit down and find a professional who will tap into your childhood and experience, a memory. When your uncle raped you, where was it? Okay, the demon was there because obviously the demon caused them to rape you. But that trauma, and now it's playing out in your adulthood and somebody calls it a demon. How is it? Was I supposed to just ignore the fact that my uncle raped me as a woman? And once I remember it, now it's a demon. Once the pain is starting to manifest and show, now we call it a demon. I think we need to look at those things. Because what happens is, you stay in the cycle of abuse and stuff like that. And another way that we stay in a cycle of abuse as women is that one of the things is it's the financial factor. It's the lack of being independent as a woman. And I'm not talking like this because somebody might go, it's because you married. No, honey, if my husband divorces me tomorrow, watch me go to Mac and upgrade my car. Tomorrow.
I love that.
Watch me walk into, I don't know how I'm going to get it there, but because at that point now I'm there, I can do it by myself. And I preach the gospel of women be independent. Being independent even as a wife to those who are married. It doesn't mean you're disregarding your husband's position as a provider. It means that you are self-sufficient. Because even if I was a man, if I was a man, I'm just saying, and I don't mind being a provider, because remember, we must understand, societal pressure is one thing, right? But our natural proclivities, our natural inclinations, we can't ignore those. Do you understand? We can't ignore the fact that a man's makeup is to provide. A woman's makeup is to nurture. That's what we also need to discuss. That is what we call feminine toxicity. Because as a woman, it's okay if you want to stay at home and be a housewife, but let it be on your terms. If you don't want to work, it's okay. I'm not saying that if I say to every woman, you have to have a business, you have to be a boss lady, that I'm being toxic. I'm being a toxic feminine. The only time that you want to do something, let it be on your own terms. If it's your husband that says, get up and go and work or else, Now that's something else, you know. But if it's your decision that you want to be and you see the financial status in the house that, you know, hubby, I think let me also get a job so that we can balance the soft life. Yeah, it's okay. But if somebody forces you to do something that you don't want to do, and there's no situation or circumstance that needs that to be covered, then that's a problem, you know. If you want to be a stay-at-home wife and you've agreed with your husband and this is your calling, because I believe there are other women that are not called to be boss ladies. We should not force people. It's not everyone who's going to own a company as a woman, and it doesn't make you less of a woman. I think we've come to a point as a woman when we think that just because there's girl power means I have to own a 7-figure company. I have to drive the latest S-Class. Okay, we should be. I mean, we should be. but you know, may God be merciful.
Receiving it.
But if you still drive a Toyota Taz, you're still as powerful as an S-Class, because it means that you afforded that Toyota Taz by yourself. And even if your husband bought it for you and you're a stay-at-home mom by decision, you are still powerful. I think we need to be very careful how we are really defining womanhood and the power of a woman. I think right now we are moving from, we are actually creating another stereotype. We are actually creating another problem, because now we are saying as long as you don't have a business, you're not woman enough.
You know, the reason why you find a lot of women, you know, I'm not trying to be very specific right now, but the slay queen, where we have this name calling. The reason why you find a lot of young girls end up putting themselves in situations where they have the decision to make to be in those situations, but it's because of those unspoken pressure of a woman should have this, a woman should have that, a woman should do this. So girls grow up with that pressure of finding themselves in spaces where they see all of these things that they don't know. Nobody knows how I got to be where I am without seeing the outside.
And also not enough guidance, because a lot of these young women, they look up to certain type of people who are out there, and they see that as attractive. And therefore, I think when women have found themselves and they know who they are, it's also important to be out, like what we are doing here today, to be the voice of reason for younger women who are coming up. And come, you know, speaking again on this issue of how it has shaped me now. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking of, you mentioned feminine toxicity. And I think it's only this moment that I'm realizing that I experienced that, but my mom was not aware through my mother. Oh God, she must not watch this. You know, I want us to speak on feminine toxicity. My mom was completely against anything to do with us growing up. By that I mean, we felt bad when we started our periods. We 4 girls. When we started with our periods, I did not even tell my mom, I told my dad, because I thought, yo, uzotindina makwenkwe, you know, I could not. And when she was angry, when she would be angry for whatever reason, I dated very late. I dated after matric at varsity. But during high school, my high school years, I already had amabele. And when she's angry with you, uzauti, it's because of amabele. And now I look at it and I'm like, but that is feminine toxicity. I was not aware. And how has all of this now, the trauma, because that was traumatic for me. Of course. How has all of that shaped me now as a mother? I remember telling myself that I don't want to be anything close to my mother. In terms of, I want my kids, I've got girls. I want my girls to enjoy and see nothing wrong with their bodies changing. When they start having hair growing, it's okay. When they start their periods, we must actually go and enjoy and celebrate.
Yes, it's a date.
And so far with my firstborn, Lily started her periods. She's 11. She started her periods, and I told my mom, and my mom was like, "Yo, bring her here and izombhula.
Oh yes,
ukuthi
uyashaya ngomshayelo.
Yeah, or
yes.
So my mom was like, bring her. She's too young to start periods. And I was like, you're not going to do that with my child. Instead, we went out, we celebrated the moment. We spoke about it. I was like, what do you want, girl? Because I wanted her to be comfortable, to be free in who she is and who God created her to be. I mean, yeah. Now, we have parents who have given these things to us unaware. Yeah. I had to find a way to forgive my mother without her even knowing that that affected me. Yeah. I every milestone of my growing up, I felt was a curse. Even with my sister after me, it was the same thing. She even hid the fact that she had started her period. She was hiding it. Sure. But then how I healed from it, I looked at my mom from a differently. I did not see her as being toxic, but I looked at her from I was I felt empathy for her.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, Sis Nandine.
Yeah.
I was talking about it with my husband the other day. I was confronted 2 days ago. I literally got hospitalized. I was confronted with my childhood pain of growing up in the homelands and how our relatives abandoned us and how I grew up. It was the first time I experienced such pain. I've never experienced such pain in my life. Even with my first divorce, I was like, good riddance to bed. I was like, I didn't even cry with my first. Why do I say my first divorce? My only divorce. In Jesus' name. I rebuke in Jesus' name. My first marriage. And I was in so much pain of how I grew up. It was just so terrible and painful. And then there were some things that I was discussing with my husband regarding my mom. He said something and he said, you need to give, how did he word it? Give your mother the grace of ignorance.
Yes, that
was powerful. Yes, exactly what you did. And because these things have been passed down, and unlike us, they didn't have the leverage or the privilege rather to sit like this and debunk all these things that have been going on in the generations that have been handed down to us. They didn't have an opportunity to have a voice and say, but actually there's nothing wrong with a child even if they start their periods at 8 years because biology says that's possible. Medicine says that's possible. It depends on the child's hormone and various other things. And because they didn't have the privilege of debunking all these things, they had no other choice but to believe them, embrace them and hand them over. And we have the opportunity to forgive them without them even knowing. We have the opportunity to give them grace, to extend grace, the grace of ignorance. They didn't know better. They don't know better. I struggled with my mom I'm only 33, and for the first time in the past week, it was the first time that I let my mom say anything and I didn't react. It was the first time. I was proud of myself. I'm like, Lord, it's the first time that I've actually honored one of the 10 commandments, one of them, Nkosi, that honor your father and your mother, because I was struggling, and so that, but anything that I felt like was toxic from my mom, that I knew that I saw you raise me like this. In my adulthood, I will not accept it. Because, when you are young, you let your parents say whatever to you. And then you go, the day that I grow up, the day that I have my own house. And I grew up and I had my own house. And now once she was starting those things back then, I was like, not in my time, not in my watch. It was not on purpose, it's Constance. It was the pain, it was the trauma. And at that time as a child, you protect yourself by going one day. That one day comes and you explode. And it's not that you shout or scream or swear, but you challenge them. And I used to challenge them, and I came to a point with my husband, I was like, you're going to challenge her until when? This person is 60-something years old. She's not going to stop. She's not going to stop. So given the grace of ignorance. And now I understand. Like, I cried on the phone. I think it was Thursday. I left the office. I went to the car and I cried, and I couldn't, like, guys, I was not well. And I said, Mom, I didn't grow up well. And she did all she could, but it was the relatives. There was just a trauma that happened in my childhood around my family members, my relatives. And I cried, and then I was in such a state, and I spoke to my husband before my mom. He was lecturing. He's a psychology lecturer. So I was the right person to talk to. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've just had a trigger and traumatic experiences from my past, from my childhood. Like, I didn't know that I had this pain in me. I wept. And my husband was able to calm me down, but he had to go to the next class. He understood. He's like, no, the pain has been, that's okay. It'll take long. He explained it as, And then I tried to call my mom. She laughed at me on the phone. Now, Phindile, so.
Shem, they don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get it.
But Sis Nandi, for the first time, I gave her the grace of ignorance, and to me, I was like, well, at least I spoke to my mom on the phone. That's all it needs.
And you know something about the grace of ignorance? It's like you take your power back.
Yes.
There's something about you that elevates. I cannot explain
Yes,
it,
ma'am.
that you take back
Yes.
for
Yeah.
yourself, which is what I did with my mom.
Sure.
We never even had a discussion.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying if she watches this, she'll hear it for the first time, because I had to put myself in the shoes of this woman didn't know better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And therefore she thought she raised us through glasses of fear.
Yes. Yeah.
There was fear around how she was raising us, raising girls and seeing them grow up, starting their periods. You worry that, oh, they're going to fall pregnant. Oh, this is going to happen.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, one thing she knows though that is that I hated being when she's fighting and I'd be thinking that's offensive because I'm only 15, I'm only 16, and you telling me just because I grew up in a very strict home. We were not even allowed to go next door. Can you imagine? Just next door. So my mom would come back from work, and if you're not there during the day, during the day you're just next door. You come back in the house. We are dead.
Yes.
And I was like, so it took me going back and dealing with that trauma and realizing that, oh, Shem, she didn't know any better.
Yeah. Yes.
And it took me parenting myself because I thought I was not parented.
Yes.
And therefore I need to do this for me in order for me to be a better mother to my kids.
Yes.
So I had to go back and say to that little girl that it's okay, that release this pain, this anger that you have, release it, see your mom from a different perspective, and then move on. And now we are, I don't think there's ever a day we go past without speaking. Me and my mom, we are like besties. And I'm seeing, not only did I now see her differently, but I also saw the little girl in her. And I got to understand how she became who she was. And my 4-year-old, Wentley is still 4, she's turning 5 in December, is raised by my mom. She's at home. She is the best grandmother you can ask for.
It's weird. It's because with my kids, I was like, I swore on my grandfather's grave, and I shouldn't be swearing. I was like, I just do that. You know, when I'm angry, if I say I swear by my grandfather's grave, you must just,
take over.
And I was like to my husband, no, my mom and my kids know. My mom respects my kids more than anyone, more than my pastor. It's incredible. And no, are you okay? No, I'm sorry. In her house, my mom says sorry to my 3-year-old. Yet she can kick me out. It's incredible. I'm like, and then she and my mom was very harsh with me and stuff like that. But with my girls, she speaks with them. No, Ura, I'm sorry, but this is my house. No, sissy, they call her sissy. She's 3 years old and 2. No, sissy, and then she said, but I'm sorry, guys. So what must be? She's negotiating, and that was never it. I mean, with my mom, you breathe. It's young Telel, you breathe only. And now she's negotiating with a 23-year-old.
And
it's incredible.
Even my mother has grown.
Yes.
Even my mother needed some mothering herself, which she did not get possibly. Hence, she became the mother that she was to me. I forgive that. I release that. And now you start embracing the new person, because I'm like, hey, this woman is different. I mean, I even keep saying my daughter is so blessed because she's having the best childhood of her life, being raised in a way that I wish I had. But
you know, like the way you introduce yourself, you said, I learn every day. And that's the one thing that, like, the way you explain your mother towards
my daughters,
is that she's now acknowledging
her mistakes.
that I'm learning.
Work in progress.
And that's also something that because my mom was never around. My mom was a domestic worker. So whenever my mom come home, I would want this mother-daughter relationship. And my mom was like, you know what? Oh, you are here. Oh, gone. And she was a heavy drinker. Where she was, I would be there behind her. She would fall and I would be there behind her. And I wanted that mother-daughter relationship until, okay, fine, I when I moved to Pretoria, when I found my first job, winter, I will always bring her over to come and spend winter with me. And she would still tell me, oh, you are counting my teeth. That time I'm 22 years old, and she'll be like, oh, so now you're counting my teeth. And until a point where we had a fight when we were back home, and she wanted to step me.
You?
Wow.
And
That's drastic. That just
and I said, I told her that, now I understand you never loved me.
sure.
You never, I tried to cling on to you, to form a relationship with you. But for the fact that you want to step me, clearly you never loved me. And that's when I started trying to find out who my dad was. And every time I want to ask her, who's my dad, she will be like, don't ask me rubbish, you know, and I will let it go. And when my youngest daughter was like about 5 years old, because I always used to, winter every year, I'll be like, come stay with me for a month or two. And we had a fallout and I had to send her home. And this was just before she passed, where when she passed, she had a stroke. And when she passed, we had a fight where we didn't even speak to each other. And when I went back home to the hospital, I had to say, I forgive you for everything. And I had to also come back to the terms of, she didn't know how. I don't know how I came into this world, but she didn't want to tell me, maybe because of her own reasons, her circumstances. And I had to forgive her in order to let her go. And knowing very well that I'm at peace.
Wow, guys.
I'm not blaming myself.
For forgiving is taking back your power.
100%,
Yes.
yeah.
And the moment I left the hospital, she passed away.
Sure.
But I could let her go because I knew that whatever we had between the two of us, I've forgiven her and she's at peace. And like initially we said that I didn't mean like I snap out of it just like this, but it takes time. Gradually, you have to acknowledge where you are and the accountability that you're taking for any relationship to be where it's at, and to make that decision to say, now I'm going to let go. I can't keep on holding on to the pain, the asking myself the questions, the what ifs. It's not going to change anything. Now I'm taking that decision and I snap out of it. And that's how in actual fact, my whole life, how I've made my decisions to let go, because my past cannot change anything. It actually takes away from my present. And I can't focus on where I want to be because I'm holding on to the past.
Sure.
What you touched on in terms of the rape, the abuse, all of that, I had to say, you know what? I'm way better than that. I grew up with a family that alcohol was better than putting food on the table.
Sure.
And I had to make decisions and say, do I want to be like that? When I left home, I said, I never want to find myself in a space where I have to question my life and want to take my own life because of I had the question of saying, God, why did you put me here? If this is the suffering that I'm going through in my life, why do I rather not be here? You know, and it comes with that forgiving, that showing grace, and the empathy that, because our weakness as empaths is that, like you said, vulnerability, is that we tend to fall so deep in it that we don't recognize ourselves because you are taking on. Yes, you are taking on. So with that forgiveness, you know, you end up realizing. But also, what I say is, like you explained, you just had a situation where you cried. We shouldn't stop ourselves from going through
the emotions,
because you end up denying yourself going through the emotions, and asking yourself that, what did I do to deserve to be treated in certain ways? And you go through all of those questions and you answer yourself. But what we tend to do is we suppress our emotions so much
that's the thing.
that whenever something small happens, we burst out. And I'll talk to Dudu and I'll be like, speaking of all my emotions of what I've been through in my life, and the tears will start flowing because I don't allow myself to go through that. And then you're going to sit back and be like, I wonder what she will think of me. She will think I'm a wreck. She will think this. That time she's not even thinking that way. But we don't want to go through the emotions that we've experienced. And healing from our childhood traumas comes with acknowledging the emotions.
Important.
And cry. Get it out of your system so that you be able to say, you know what, I forgive you.
I think it's one of the most powerful traits that any woman can have. The power to confront and acknowledge whether it's your pain, your hurt, your traumas, and even your weaknesses. That's the most powerful thing that you can do. Because I think the most powerful person is not the person who's got the most weaknesses. It's the person that knows their weaknesses but knows how to deal with them. Knows their past pain, traumas, and knows how to manage them as well. I think listening to you ladies, and you've touched on something critical as well, about decision making. I think on top of knowing your personal ID, which is your identity and destiny as a woman, the ability of confronting and acknowledging your weaknesses and shortfalls and whatever, I think the third thing that's important or critical as a woman, whether you are parenting, whether you're in relationships, whether it's business, whether it's academics, we are in various spheres of our lives, or stages of our lives rather, I think it's the decision making. I often say, in my talks when counseling people, that it takes one decision to a new direction of your life. In fact, those are the words that were spoken by Jim Rohn, one of my favorite speakers of all time. He says it takes one decision to change the direction of your life. And he says you may not get to that destination overnight, but you can change direction overnight. It takes a decision. A decision to forgive, a decision to heal, a decision to confront your past traumas, a decision not to stay in that abusive relationship and marriage. I mean, we were saying earlier about, that I feel like gender-based, and these are it's not the entire picture. It's part of the picture. It's part of the contributory factor to GBV. I think it's because women tend to give so much power to a man. And then the man abuses that. The man, like I said, preys on that vulnerability. And some of these things you ask, why are you still there? I don't have money. Money? You don't have hands. You don't know how to and get 50 rand a day. You don't know how to bake. Okay, your mom didn't teach you, but the lady next door that you are talking to every day can't teach you how to bake 10 biscuits that you can sell. Because our mothers had nothing. I didn't grow up with a father. Grew up with my mom as a domestic worker. Even if those particular people didn't have work for her no longer, she'll knock on doors. You don't know how to use your hands and wash people's clothes. I mean, it's not a matter of downgrading or degrading. You can't be degraded. I honor a woman that is self-sufficient. As long as you're not wrecking somebody's home or stealing from somebody or destroying somebody's life. If you clean toilets at the mall, I respect you. That's why each time I walk into a mall and I find a woman cleaning, I apologize 10, 15 million times. Sorry, ma'am. I'm so, hi, ma'am. In my workplace, in the position that I'm in at work, I respect the securities more than my CEO. Sanbonan Baba, ma'am, sorry, ma'am, I call them ma'am, madam. I'm sure if you follow me on social media, you'll know that I always say madam and ma'am to people, even to the waiters, because to me, you're in an honorable position.
Absolutely.
You are providing for your children. You're providing for your family. You're standing up as a woman. You're saying, I'm not going to be subjected to a man's abuse just because I need 10 rand from him or because I'm living in a double store. I would rather, and I'm not talking because my life is fancy. No, remember, I come from pit toilets. I come from a shack and all those things. I know the pain. I'd rather live in a shack than in a double story of an abusive man, sitting with my iPhone 21. No, none of us have it. But you've got an iPhone 21. You're sitting in a double story house in and crying he's gone, he's hit me, I'd rather be in my shack with my Nokia 5110
and your peace
my peace. This is my house. You can't the only person who control me out of here. Yeah, my mental health
is so important.
And I we are not condoning divorce.
Yeah,
Yes.
We are not saying as a woman, the second you have a challenge in your relationship or your marriage, leave the man.
Yes.
No. There's a fine line between challenges, problems, and abuse. A fine line. It's very definite. Like it's defined. It's very clear. You know, there are going to be challenges. Face them. You know,
Yes.
there's going to be weaknesses. Deal with them.
Yes.
But where there's abuse, I advise you to leave, because I honor a woman who can leave a double-story mansion and say, I'm not going to be abused anymore. Then for us to come you are lying in a white casket with a glass, your husband has killed you, and now he even has the nerve to pay for your very expensive funeral, and then we go as women with our toxicity and go, oh, in Bogoto. You stood for it. And you died at the hands of a man because you're in Bogoto. I respect you when you pack your bags and leave and go into a shack in Alexander. I have respect for you. But if you're going to stay there under abuse, not challenge, not challenges. There's going to be challenges. I have challenges in my marriage, but my marriage has not come to a point of abuse where I have to leave. But the second, as much as I love my husband, trust me, I'll divorce the second time. If you're gonna love at me for divorcing for the second time, that's your problem.
Yes.
But I'm not going to stay
talking about
and be in an abusive relationship.
And you know what we also need to define is that gender-based abuse doesn't necessarily mean being beaten up only. There's different forms of abuse. And the one thing that I've come to notice is that you find women, even men, you find them in these abusive situations, and they talk to you about it. They want your advice. Fine, you give them advice. At the end of the day, it's your decision to make. But it's kind of low-key where somebody wants you to tell them, leave. They don't want to take the accountability to make that decision themselves. Because they want to end up coming back. Okay, fine, they leave, and then they start working things out, and then they want to come back and say,
Connie said I
but
must go."
Connie said I must go.
Yes.
You know, I found myself in so many friendships where when it comes to abuse, because I've sat there in abuse, I've reached out to friends and speaking about being beaten up, and I got advice of, but he will change. Or
there's something wrong with you.
Yes, I got advice of, but you guys have been together for such a long time. And I was that person who wanted that kind of like, give me a rope so I can come out.
Sure.
And the people we call friends, they didn't give me a rope. I had to say, you know what? It's either I become a statistic, or I pull this rock out under my feet and start
from scratch.
Scratch.
And you can't do that without taking back your power.
Yes.
Exactly.
You can't. There's something about finding yourself that gives you the courage to finally say, this is not it. I do not deserve this. I don't want to be a part of this. I'm out of this.
Yes. I literally fall in love with mirrors because I was starting to talk to myself. I looked at myself in mirrors and be like, why did you come to Gauteng? Why did you leave your space where you were to move here? Why are you here? Who are you? You are not the person that left home to come to Gauteng to be where you are right now. And I constantly looked at myself and looked at how I lost myself. And when I left, even my friends that still know me from then, they are like, you've become the happiest person that we've known.
You found yourself, girl.
Yes.
You're glowing.
And and people don't understand why I love mirrors. It's not because
you're vain.
I'm vain. No, because I recognize me in those mirrors.
You recognize the beauty that you are.
And not only,
I like the fact that when you introduced yourself, you said, I'm beautiful. And I thought you'd say that. I was waiting for you to say, when I said introduce yourself, I was waiting for you to say I'm beautiful. I love
In
that.
actual fact, whenever somebody greets me and they ask me, how are you? I tell them, I'm beautiful.
I love that.
And, you know, like if we go with society and we go with what will this person think? I'm vain. And I'm like, I don't care what you think of me. I care what I think about myself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I just love the fact that as women we can identify what we've gone through as individuals and where we are right now. You know, my struggle is that I don't give men a chance
to prove you wrong. Or to prove you right.
I don't give men a chance to
experience
lower
this
my not to experience this beauty, to tell me that my standards are too high.
Let me get that clear. You don't give men a chance to lower your
To lower my standards.
so your
Because
standards. You know your standards.
I know my standards and I know
And-
it's high. And if you can't meet me up there,
Yeah, then it's fine.
unfortunately,
That's
I
all right.
cannot bring myself down.
That's good.
Yes.
That's okay.
So I've come to the point where I was like, you know what? Maybe
This is
my
not for
man,
me.
you know, sometimes
After this
disabilities.
podcast, you will
DJ,
find- after this podcast,
Thank you for telling me.
after this podcast, you will like trust me. When I came onto this podcast, I'm telling you, look at me now, girl. Look at me now.
No,
I'm glowing. I am glowing.
but yeah, I think we are now on the relationship. Maybe you can. How did you move from?
I'm not a good person, guys. I've been married twice.
But I'll go for that one.
I'm just
I'll
kidding.
go for that one. There's so much beauty.
There's also glow more, na?
Does it show?
That's right. Love. We're sweet.
There was a time in this very podcast where we were talking, you were there, and we were talking about what one is looking for in a partner. And after going through everything, you spoke on childhood traumas, whatever the subconscious was. After forgiving people and I found myself in so much peace and so happy and content with myself without a significant other.
Yes.
There are those moments where you think, oh, it would be nice if Bendikalis Fubenska Abraham.
Oh, let's fast forward to
And so someone once said, it's important that you must know what you want.
Right.
And one thing I was specific on was that he must be dark. Like, I want to laugh again.
You know
what, God, I do not compromise when it comes to he must be dark.
Yes.
And one thing I kept mentioning was the fact that he must be kind. He must be kind, and I don't want to explain myself. And he must be okay with Nandipa as Mnanje.
Yes.
The fact that I've got 2 kids, I'm a divorcee, and this, he must be okay with all of that because
Yes.
I'm not gonna drop.
Lower your
What I
standards.
want.
Yes.
Oh well.
Modimo, ako bless.
So there is something about healing and restoration,
Yes.
which also this podcast is about. We are about talking about those things, yes, but finding healing, finding restoration, finding our identity.
Yes.
And it's good to speak from
a point of
reference.
yes,
now.
yes. From a point of happiness.
Amen.
I actually went and I wrote a list,
Yeah.
right? And it's got like 42 points.
Hey, when
This list is like 42 points.
Yeah.
Right? And you know, and in my head, you know, I sometimes go through this list and I'm like, check. Yes. I'm like, check. Like, check.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. So, and I think we as women, right, we shouldn't be afraid of wanting what we want,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
sticking to our guns.
Yes.
Which this is what I want, whether it's in a relationship, even
Yes.
at work, when you go for a new job or whatever, your salary, you want what you want.
Yes.
You know what you want. You
Yes.
can't expect to go to, oh, okay, my boss is gonna see the goodness of glory of God, and then he's gonna get. No, you must be specific. As women, we need to be intentional,
Yes.
and we must be very specific. You know, Uguti, this is what I want. Yabona, mina my life. It has been the mercy and the glory of God. My life has been the mercy and the glory of God. If I look at my life from where I came from and how I started and how things were, Ngabe, I am nowhere near here. I would be nowhere near here. But God was like, that's fine. I've got you.
Yes.
And I always say, Uguti, it feels like when He blesses me with the silver platter.
Yes.
That me. Yabana, when he lays the
He's showing
table.
off.
Yes, in front of
Yes.
your enemies. And I am there.
Oh,
I am at the head of the table and I am eating.
The beauty of healed women.
No,
Yes.
but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I want a healing, and even us ourselves realizing Uguti, how we are toxic sometimes.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
sometimes we are not all that is glittering and gold. Sometimes not, we are toxic.
right.
So, and sometimes you get into a relationship to punish that person for what the other person has
And
done to you, and
yes,
that's unfair.
yes.
Yeah.
That is unfair, and then you wonder why things. But healing and realizing,
Yes.
Uguti, you can't use your money and power and status and your femininity as a power tool
Yes.
to abuse
Right.
somebody else's child, because
Yeah.
Yes.
men are other people's children too.
Yes.
And you can't use that. So if you're intentional as a woman, Uguti, this is what I want. One of the things that I on my list and that I sent to God and I prayed for was there somebody who doesn't think I'm too much.
Yes.
Yes.
I know I'm a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the right guy, you are just perfect.
Yes.
And He meets me where I need to be met.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Like He doesn't think I'm a lot. He actually, it's like, you know, when a person is your hype man.
Yes.
And you're like, seriously?
Yes.
Like, I don't need a hype man right now. And when you're hyping me up.
Yes.
And if we are intentional as women and stop holding on to our hurt and quoting nganga shawa indota, or
All men are like this.
yes,
Yes.
that is why, and that is
against
unfair.
the
Not all
narrative.
men. No,
All men are
no,
trash. I'm
no.
completely
I am
totally
raising
against that.
somebody's husband.
Yeah.
I am raising
Yes.
somebody's father.
Yeah.
So my son is not all men.
And I never identified with that all men are trash, because
No.
I'm like, I'm
Your
raised by
man is
I'm raised by a
trash.
good
Yes.
man. My dad is a very good man.
Yes.
In fact, I think the reason why I could not compromise no longer is because I would go back and be like, I know how to be loved by a
Right?
man.
Yes.
I was loved so good by my dad. I cannot compromise.
Let me, my dad,
You know-
is a princess. My dad calls me princess.
Oh, wow.
And if you know me through my dad, ucabanga ukuthi igama lami princess.
Yeah.
Because according to my dad, I walk on water.
You know,
So I'm not going to expect a
So it's
man
important
for
men
less than.
to speak and to treat us right.
Yes.
Because they are daughters. That is because they grow up to be women who know who they are.
Yes.
Women who don't
Yeah.
tolerate nonsense. I always
Yes.
said shit.
Well, it's the unchristian podcast, so
Yes. We won't black that out.
I always say that because, fine, like I always reference to myself. I didn't. Yes, there were men around when I grew up, but I also saw how they treated women. Like I said earlier on, is that my grandfather I've never seen him raise his hand, but there were other forms of abuse. And we are friends with men. And if I had to go with the narrative of all men are trash, it means I include
The
the
men that you
friends-
know and
yes,
yeah.
that I've seen how they speak to me and how they, just because I went through an abusive man doesn't mean that all men,
no.
just because
Men are gorgeous.
you know one man treats another woman in a certain way, now I have to paint them all with the same brush. Imagine if us women were painted with the same brush, all of us. How would we be in the same spaces? And for me, I always say that also how men, you know the name calling. I don't tolerate any of those kind of callings because I don't see myself as that. So the moment you allow somebody to call women in those derogative names, it means you're going to call me the same. So the moment I see that, I call it to order and I make sure that I remove myself from those kind of people. Because you cannot say you love your woman,
yeah.
But
you love
yet-
your mother, you love your sisters, but yet you call another woman the H word, the B word. How I don't even listen to that kind of music because to me, it means I fall under the same bracket as the way you call other women. So it's like you said, also the list that we make in terms of the kind of man that we want to attract, the man that is supposed to come to me. It's very important to understand that the moment you make that list of, dear God, this is the kind of man that I want, am I the kind of woman
Yes.
that you want
For
that
him.
man to be with?
Yes.
Am I secure enough
In myself.
with me in order for me to make sure that that man treats me with the utmost respect that I need to be treated with, the kindness, the soft love. Am I giving that in order for me to receive that? Because sometimes God keep away what we are not ready for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to acknowledge the fact that you are not ready to be in a relationship.
True.
You are not, are you mentally ready to, because the moment you are with someone, it means you now need to change the person that you are. And they're not changing you, but you need to understand that it's not all about you anymore. Because now you have to bring in somebody else.
Wow.
And it's very important to recognize that. You know, for me, I've been single for 9 years. Hey. But and
By choice.
yes.
Yes.
And in all honesty, I have my list. I've prayed and I said, God, when I'm ready, you will show me the man that is supposed to be with me.
I love that.
When I was like, I will not invite somebody into my space whilst I'm still dealing with a lot that I need to deal with. I know a lot of men say, but you will not be completely healed. You will not be complete, a perfect person for that person to meet you there. But that is me.
Yeah.
I want to be prepared because I've had the experience of that whole reference in order for me now to say, what am I going to bring different to this table? What am I going to change from what I've done before?
Yeah.
You know, not for them, but for
But
me.
for yourself.
Yes.
I love that. This is Maz.
Sis Nandi, I think my last contribution, the sun is even setting on us.
And there's still so much.
There's a lot. I don't want to be a party pooper, and I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting. I'm adding to the knowledge and the pool of wisdom from you ladies. A list is imperative to have, but some of these lists are toxic.
No, I understand why.
yes.
I understand why. Because now you want this person to fit the mold. No.
Yes.
It's like, dear God, my list. Mara, even if
But you know what I like about
you know?
God?
Yeah.
He hears you.
yes.
And he tears the list sometimes.
Yes.
Because he knows what's best for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the list is not a bad thing. But if I can sit in a counseling session, tap into your subconscious and what has happened, I can tell you 99.99% of those things are toxic against yourself. And of course, a man must respect you.
Yes.
That doesn't even have to be in the list.
But it needs to be.
No,
nowadays,
you know what I'm saying? That
Mrs.
some of those things
It
are,
needs to be.
how do I put it?
It's a given.
It's a give, yeah.
But
A man
for
has to
odds,
respect you.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
these days,
so,
it's
true.
unfortunately,
And
yeah.
a man should respect. A man shouldn't hit you. A man should take care of you. Those are the basic terms and conditions. You know, they should be. You know, in an ideal world, in a utopia, that's how it's supposed to be. But some of these things, some of the list is not even because of our past experiences or otherwise, but it's because of the Hollywood image that we are seeing, and now we want to put it on our list as well. That's toxic. Let's be honest. Some of the things are because of what we see. Honestly, it's not even because you are abused, so you want to stay away from an abuser.
Yeah.
Just when
It's not because
TV.
you know. I remember, and I'm talking because I've been married before, and then I had to get married the second time, so I had to be very, very critical. You become critical even if you're not married. In your next relationship, you become even more critical. But Another thing is sometimes we make this list and we ourselves can't even meet 0.5% of the next person's list.
Well, I am perfect, so
So it's a problem. I think as I've gathered that we are children of God here.
Yes.
I've gathered that you people are prayerful women. Lord, this is my list, and also be trust God enough to say,
Yes.
Lord, let it be your will.
Yes.
I'll tell you why. I'm married to the most perfect husband in the world, and not perfect because he's flawless and doesn't have mistakes, because God has perfectly placed us and given me grace to handle him.
Yes.
The issue is that you're not going to get a man that is able to take your too muchness.
Yes.
He might be the person that hates your too muchness, but God has given him grace to handle it.
Yes.
No, I feel like I'm powerful right now.
Amen. You know when you say
It's
that,
grace,
you
it's
know-
capacity. Some people, I feel that there's some things that irritate my husband about me, but I also know that he's the only man that has got capacity.
Yes.
So sometimes it's not that person even, like, even when you leave the house, oh, thank God, that woman, she's so macho, she's gone. But I'll turn that dude. The
Yes.
best man in the world,
Beyond.
beyond anyone. But now, Pumuti, oh, thank God, that woman's noise. But when
Yes.
in his presence with that noise, he's got capacity to handle you.
Yes.
Yes, I usually make a joke when he looks at me and he's like, yes, sis, you're a nonsense, yes. And I'm like, but I'm a decision you make every day.
Yes.
So you need to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
And be
I
sure of
am
your
a
decision.
Yeah.
you make every day.
So God places you where there is grace
Yes.
for that person to handle you. For an example, I had an apparent list, and I met my husband, and he met nothing on the list. Remember, I said things like,
But he had the car though.
Ro-
I'm sure
romantic-
the car was on the list. Because I remember when
stop listening to me.
I am sure the car was on the because I listened to
No,
you
that
back.
car. Can we just put that machine aside, please, ladies? Let's not bring machines into
I don't know this car, but the car was on the list.
thing that made an impression
Yes,
on
I
her.
know. Yes.
Guys,
But it was the wrong color. The color was wrong, but the car.
Oh, she's calling it the machine.
Yes.
I must stop saying things under oath already. So the thing is, I mean, things like respect and whatever, to me that was a given, even though men don't always have it, but it's a given that they should. So I didn't have
Yes.
such things on my list. And I came from a very abusive marriage as well, so it was a lot, and from other past relationships after my marriage. And the things that I thought I wanted, they didn't come packaged when I saw my husband. I only found them out in marriage. And I was like, I'm in a good and the right place. Everything about him didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Everything about him was exactly what I did not want. Okay, he was not abusive, he did respect me, but there were other things that I was like, this is not gonna work. Why am I even here?
Yeah.
And it took our marriage and the challenges and us being infused together to find out this was actually the perfect man for me, and I was not aware.
Yeah.
But had I put him here and the list here, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'll get to you. And of course, if a person on the first date slaps you, I mean, like that. I mean, guys,
Yes.
come on,
That's-
But
yeah.
that's a given. Some
Yes.
things are a given. But if on the first date he doesn't open the door for you, I mean, go. You've got hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Maybe if you give the relationship a chance, 2 years later you will teach him how to open the door. Sometimes
what
we
we
teach
lack?
each other.
Patience.
That's the thing.
Yes.
And empathy.
Yeah, without sorry
I'm
for
done.
interrupting you. I want to close. And I want to say that I want us to meet again.
Yes.
When women gather and talk,
Apparently we produce 80,000 words a day. So.
And you know what? The
And
word
men
is
it's like only 3,000.
Yeah, so
something ridiculous like that.
Before you close,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, like you said, yes, you know what they say about writing down your goals.
And being intentional.
And when you want your manifestation, is you write your things down, and the moment it's written down, it becomes because.
But there's
Yes.
there's a clause to that, and the clause is your goals must be realistic.
Yes.
Some of these things are
Yes, that's why-
At
that's why
this age,
that's why
we are
you-
old enough
I'm
to know.
you know what,
This is not Hollywood.
You know what?
mine was not realistic because all I wanted was someone who is just like me. When the most important one was dark. I'm sorry, kindness. Sorry. Dark, the complexion. Yes, most but I'm attracted to
Yes.
this.
Yes.
It was one of those way. Had you not been dark, I would have still been fine because they're very important. attributes that.
Yeah.
Ladies, I need to close. I'm sorry. And as we close, I just want to thank you for coming through. Thank you for the wisdom that you shared. Thank you for sharing from your own lives as women. Umandla, ne? Here's something that I'd like. There's 4 of us here. There's a scripture, Proverbs 9, I think it's 1. It speaks of wisdom has built her house, and all 7 pillars are in place. Now, I want to find out, what do you think these pillars are? There's 4 of us. You can name one pillar. I'll give the one that I think is the pillar. Wisdom also in Proverbs is given gender. Very weird. Wisdom is referred to as her place, her house. All the 7 pillars are in place. And it's one of the fascinating scriptures for me, because it used to make me wonder, there must be some completeness as a woman that comes, that you experience when all your 7 pillars are in place. May I say that I do believe that kindness is one of those pillars that should be in place. Okay, what do you think those pillars are?
I think another pillar would be respect.
Absolutely.
I am all for respect, because you can love me as much as you want, but if you don't respect me, then I think respect and giving respect is very difficult, especially in situations where people don't deserve it. But you still and respect that individual. So for me, I think respect is one of those pillars.
Absolutely.
For me, it's I've got a few, but I'll say it's patience. Because we are imperfect human beings. We tend to be so impatient with ourselves, impatient with the people that we deal with on a daily basis. But coming with patience doesn't mean that you have to now give a person a rope to hang you. Because sometimes what we tend to do is we tend to be so patient and so kind that we end up giving our power away without recognizing it. So we need to be patient with ourselves in order to understand that the next person that I meet, I need to be patient with that person. Even though I am healed, and I believe I am, but I will not fully know it until I meet somebody
who challenges
me, and who will make me, who's going to trigger certain things that I've been through in my life. And I will have to understand that, like you said, they come with their own process of healing. And because for me, the first thing I'll probably do is be like, you know what, I had peaceful nights. I'll go to bed smiling without any worries, so I'm not going to tolerate this. So with that healing, I need to come with being patient with the other person or the people in my spaces in order for me to also be patient with myself.
Awesome.
I think if I'd have to name the pillar, it would be self-control. And self-control, I'd have to then marry it with management. So self-control, self-management, or management itself. I think as a woman, one of the most important things is being able to manage thyself. Manage your emotions, manage your decisions, manage your goals, your awareness of yourself, self-awareness, manage your children, manage your household, manage your finances, manage your debts, manage your relationships, manage people who abuse you, manage them out of your life. Those who are good for your life, manage them into your life. Manage your expenditure, manage your weaknesses, manage your flaws, manage your shortcomings. It's a matter of management. Management means you prioritize. Management means you discard. Management means you omit. Management means some things need additions, others need to grow, others need to fall off, others need to be reviewed, others need to be upgraded, others need to be improved. It's a matter of management.
Wow.
Especially managing the mouth.
Well, they don't have to all be here today. We are meeting again, Nandipa.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd also say forgiveness. Forgiveness is very important, because you spoke of ID when we started. That is very key as well. Forgiveness, and there are certain things, there's a certain level of power that is who you are, that you bring back to yourself when you forgive. And we are in an imperfect world. Siphila nabantu who are imperfect. However, we need to be whole. Nevertheless,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we need to be forgiving people on a daily.
Yes.
So I would say forgiveness as well. It opens so many doors. We spoke on that. Ladies, thank you so much for coming through. Do you want to add another pillar?
For me, it's also recognizing your growth from where you started to be, from where you are right now, and being proud of yourself.
Yes.
Because it really takes a lot to acknowledge every obstacle that you've overcame, and you're still probably going to still face some obstacles in life, and recognize your growth. And not growth that is defined by others, but growth that is defined by you.
Yes.
And be proud of yourself.
Wow.
Because it really takes a lot being a woman. And it takes a lot being you. Recognize that, like she was saying about, being self-aware. And by being self-aware, you end up recognizing your flaws and what you could do to improve. Do your own stock take. Do your own performance review of where you've been, and it comes with the discipline of how you handle everything in your life. You hold yourself accountable.
Wow.
So it's very important to recognize and holding yourself accountable and look at the discrepancies of how you can improve. We are not perfect. We can only improve where we were to be where we are and where we want to be.
Amen.
Amen.
Wow, thank you, ladies.
It's a
so
pleasure.
much wisdom, so much. I've taken so much for myself as well. When are you guys coming again? You guys must come back.
Let us know. We will be here.
And as she said, once you come here,
I'm telling you,
you become
she's coming.
a friend, a family member of this podcast. And if you are single and you're hoping to meet
She's
someone,
coming.
you definitely will.
coming.
She coming. You saying on the very same day?
Yeah, the very same day.
After being here, there's an anointing
Okay.
that comes with this.
We're building
My
families.
Can we bring on the financial gurus then? And then after that we meet here on the platform. And then we have money.
Oh, guys, it's been good. I listened to you. I loved everything that you had to share. Indeed, women are wisdom personified. It makes sense why the Bible refers to wisdom as she, her.
Yes.
And you are all of that and more. Thank you guys who are watching and who are listening. Do subscribe. We love you.
Bye-bye.